So welcome to Game of the Month Club. Yeah. This month, Salina is going to be leading us through a discussion of NieR Automata. Nice. And Sam, you want to talk about the special dessert this evening?
No.
Yeah, so I made a coffee jelly with cold brew I made myself. I don't know if you've had it. It's a nice summer treat, and served with sweet condensed milk, whipped cream, and a chocolate disc that is supposed to resemble Emil, the cursed magic boy. And I imagine it's something he would like to eat, because he can suck it through his weird teeth.
Oh my.
So yeah, if you would like to try it, it's available at the donation center. Honest donation.
It's very tasty, and it's like the coffee jelly is bitter, so the sweet works.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right, well, without further ado, Joe, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Hi.
Howdy.
Nice to see all of you. Thanks for coming. This morning when I woke up, I was like, I wonder if anybody will come. So it's nice that happened. All right, yeah, so I'm going to talk about a few things, and, I didn't realize it would be quite this formal, so I hope the presentation's not too boring, but I put some thought into it. All right, so first, who's Yoko Taro? So Yoko Taro, those are some of his stats. I just put that there because it seems relevant, but I thought it was interesting that he studied design. He didn't necessarily go into games, and he didn't plan on going into games to begin with, which is kind of a pattern I've noticed with some of my favorite designers like Keita Takahashi and other people. The games didn't seem to be on the radar, but then I think he started working at Namco or something like that, or some subsidiary of it that shut down, and yeah, since then, the work that he's gotten to be known for is usually known for being kind of dark, and if you played NieR Automata or any of his other games, you probably are familiar with that. There are pictures of him without his mask, but since he prefers this, I just figured I'd go with that. His reasoning for wanting to appear in a mask all the time is he compared it to, like, if you've ever read like an erotic novel, he's like, you don't want to necessarily have to picture the 50-year-old man who wrote it as you're reading it. And so that's kind of how he likens it. He doesn't really want to destroy the mystique of who created this story. So the first notable game that he made was called Drakengard. I have not personally played Drakengard. I played Drakengard 2, which he didn't really work that much on and is not good. But according to Tim Rogers, from talking to him the other day, he says it is good. So I don't know if I believe him. But he worked at a company called Cavia, and I'll get to Cavia. But Cavia developed Drakengard. It was published by Square Enix. It was probably one of their more put-together games. He originally got the idea because if you're unfamiliar with Drakengard, it's kind of like the Muso series, or as they call it here, Dynasty Warriors. Have you guys played that before?
Yeah.
Or know of it, at least? Yeah. So in that game, you're like one person, and you're just slaughtering armies of people. So he thought it would be interesting, and after they win these battles where they've killed all these like hundreds of people, they're like cheering and they're really happy about it. He's like, you would have to be like out of your mind to be really happy about murdering hundreds of people. He's like, you would have to be insane. So he wanted to make a game where you played as somebody who was insane and loved to murder people. And that's what Drakengard is about, basically. All the main characters that you play as are unstable and love to kill. And it's, from what I've been told, it's kind of a depressing game. It also has connections to the NieR series. So I've read that while he was working at Cavia, he wasn't particularly happy, and it apparently caused him to drink a lot, which apparently he still does. But he would drink a lot and often just spend most of the time yelling at everybody. This is according to him. Maybe it's embellished, but I'm almost inclined to kind of believe him about that. He also got a lot of direction about what the game should have or should be like, and he didn't enjoy that, so he kind of stepped away for Drakengard 2. which is the one that I picked up because I heard Dragon Guard 1 was good, but, just it was late to the party with that. But after that, he went on to make NieR. But before we get to NieR, so who and what was Cavia? So that's their logo.
It's dark.
Yeah. It's This on this
All
screen.
this text there?
You can't really see it, but yeah, like
All we see is.
my slides
Oh,
are
there,
a
right.
gray background on my computer. It's not supposed to be black, but yeah, that's what it looked like.
Oh my god.
I don't know. Yeah, it was supposed to be like meaningful, but now it's not. So okay, they were a third-party developer, pretty small. They did a combination of like original IPs and also some like work for other franchises like Dragon Quest and I forget. They made like a couple other things too. Oh yeah, one of them I'll get to. So Bullet Witch was the first real intro I had to their games. So if any of you owned an Xbox 360 when it first launched, and you also happen to like bad games, Bullet Witch was great. However, the thing about Bullet Witch is like, well, we'll get into that because it has to do with kind of what Cavia was all about. So they made unique, weird, not quite great games. I would say that they're charming. I would also say that, like, if you're familiar with the term kusoge, kusoge is Japanese. I forget the word when you make like a made-up word. A portmanteau, yes, of kuso and gemu, which means shit and game. It's this whole genre that's like an unofficial genre of games that a very small niche section of Japanese gamers like, where, and maybe you've played games like this. They're games that when you tell your friends they should play them, they get mad at you because they're like, this is really bad. Why did you tell me to play this? And you're just like, I don't know. There's something about it that I just like. I'm a big fan of kusoge.
So bad it's good.
Yeah, it's not even that it's so bad it's good. There's just something about it that clicks. Like it's not like, like when you're watching like a Mystery Science Theater movie and you're like, oh, this is hilarious. Like sometimes it can be like that, but there's just something about kusoge where it's like, if you've ever played the simple 2000 series on the PlayStation 2, well, look into it. They were like games that cost like $20, and they were One Chambara was one of them. That's the girl with the swords and the bikini and the cowboy hat that kills zombies.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So again, not good games, but like weirdly, vaguely, kind of enjoyable in this weird way. So Cavia was kind of like a more polished developer of what I would say those games are like. And from what I'm reading about their history, I think it mostly comes down to the fact that they didn't have a lot of money, and also maybe not like the greatest people working at the company. So yeah, their ideas often outpace their ability to carry out those ideas. Bullet Witch has a lot of really cool ideas, and it's really ahead of its time in a lot of ways. But it's hard to say that it's good. I liked it, but it's like, there's a lot about it, and I was watching some video today of it, and I'm like, yeah, this is pretty janky. But it was interesting. So
What do you mean their ideas outpace their...
So
I think I know what I mean.
yeah, so like they would take a genre. So Bullet Witch is basically just kind of your generic third-person like action game, but you play. It's like in the future, and you're fighting the undead, and you are playing as a witch who has like different abilities that you can like infuse your broom with. Also, your broom is a machine gun. So like. There's a lot of really interesting ideas going on there, but none of it quite gels. It's just kind of like you have a lot of interesting things going on.
Almost like an experiment, but it didn't necessarily work out right, but it was an interesting experiment.
Yeah, and it's like, and it's weird because a lot of the stages are very empty. Like there's nothing, and then there's like action. And like, that's almost part of what is interesting about it, but that like was not on purpose and was just bad design. So I'm probably not doing a great job selling their games, but
I also think that concept you're describing is hard to describe.
yeah,
It's not so bad it's good. It's bad,
yeah,
but you still appreciate it.
yeah. There's
Their
just
vision is maybe good, but their execution isn't. They're not capable of it yet. Like
Yeah.
the room. No, that's the bad.
See, I don't know, but
That's good.
there's a good article about this genre, and it's loosely a genre, on Hardcore Gaming 101. I think Kurt did a write up about it, where he talks about a whole bunch of different examples. So if you are curious about like what are these like terrible games that people like for some reason, I would recommend reading through that. So Bullet Witch was my first real introduction to Cavia. I initially got introduced to them via my friend Tim, because he used to write about them ad nauseum, because that's what he does. And so I decided to check it out, and I was like, okay, yeah, I feel this, I get this. I also kind of feel like that period of time in like next-gen gaming was kind of stale. There was just a lot of the same stuff. Like there was just a lot of first-person shooters and a lot of just, I don't know, just stuff that wasn't appealing to me at the time. And so when I would see things that were weird, I genuinely appreciated them, even if they weren't good. So these are games such as Drakengard. They made a Ghost in the Shell standalone complex game for the PS2, which is arguably good.
Yeah. So good it's bad.
Yeah, like,
A lot of people think standalone complex is like boring.
yeah,
Right? Like,
That's actually the more technically competent game.
yeah. It's definitely one of the more competent games that they
I'm
released.
sorry about the show.
Oh, the show as well. Yeah, the show also. Well, the show I always thought of is like whenever I would try to sell it to my friends, I'd be like, "You watch a lot of Law and Order. You'd probably like Ghost in the Shell."
Ghost in the Shell.
Yeah, it's like I think you would like this show. And the game, the game also its pacing is kind of slow, like, but it's interesting, and yeah, it's a good match for the show. They also did like a Dragon Quest side story game. It was like Shonen Yanga's Tofushigi no Dungeon, so it was like a mystery dungeon roguelike game with Yangus as a young boy. If you're not Dragon Quest fans, that means nothing. But I didn't play it. I'm sure it's like every other mystery dungeon game.
Dragon Quest, the same artist as Dragon Ball Z.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the same. Oh.
Yeah. So their final game, Kavia's final game, was NieR. And it was kind of a great way for them to go out, because it was probably the pinnacle of what they could produce. And Yoko Taro was at the head of it. So there were two versions of it, Gestalt and Replicant. Replicant is a direct reference to Blade Runner. Gestalt is just Gestalt. Yeah, just
It's kind of an art term.
It's like the whole is not equal to the sum of its parts.
Greater?
Not necessarily. It could be greater or less than. But it
So
just means
equal
that
and or
it just means like when you add the parts together, you don't really get the whole. The whole is something else.
That's not what like my art teacher used to say. Like, oh, you painted that, and you got the gestalt of it. Like, you got the whole of it.
I looked this up earlier today, but I totally forgot it. I was like, I should look up what Gestalt means, but
So like, Freud used the word.
oh yeah, that's true. I could, but then I got to exit this. I don't know.
no, you're the other one though, right?
Oh yeah. All right. Let's wait. Yeah. Okay. We're not going anywhere. Oops. I opened.
Can you also Google how many cats are in the world?
while we're doing this, sure.
We don't need a full number. We just need a gestalt of it.
Yeah. Just the Gestalt. So yes, the Gestalt is an organized whole that is perceived as more than the sum of its
Oh, so it is
parts.
more.
The word perceived throws me off, so I don't know.
Okay.
So I
So anyway,
Also, like in psychoanalysis, they use the word a lot, like Freud and Lacan. So, like for Lacan, it's like when a baby looks in a mirror and imagines it's a fully an adult that can like lift stuff up. It's seeing its gestalt.
The complete. So.
Yeah. The imagined complete.
Yeah,
But you have to be wrong about it.
But that's very Kavia in that the whole perceived whole is not the sum
Yeah,
of the parts.
that's true. That's a good point.
yeah, no, definitely not. So the reason there were two versions of this is initially Gestalt was the one that was planned, and it focuses on like a middle-aged man whose daughter is dying of a disease. It takes place in the far distant future. There's not a lot of human beings left, and he's trying to find a cure for her. They wanted to have an older character because there were so many other games that were focused and targeted on like younger people. And so they thought like, oh, there's this whole section of people that don't, feel like they have like a relatable character. However, it was supposed to be an Xbox 360 exclusive, but if you know anything about the history of the 360 in Japan, that would have been a bad business decision. So they made a PS3 version as well, which was Replicant. And Replicant decided to make the main character much younger, I think like in his early 20s, and he was the older brother of this girl. Other than that, there's no real major differences. I think there's like slightly more ending in Replicant or something like that.
More ending, and the PS3 version is less technically fine. The Xbox version one's better than the PS3.
Right, yeah, because I'm imagining because it was developed on the 360 and then they're like, oh, we gotta port this.
And other games don't have that.
So, yeah, NieR was really, really interesting. So like I said, I kind of feel like Cavia for all these years kept making these games that like never quite hit the mark. NieR also does not entirely hit the mark, but it's much closer. I remember, like, here's an example of how it does not hit the mark as a game to me. I remember when I first got it, I'm playing for like 4 or 5 hours, and then you have to go to some village, and you have to do like, some dumb side quests like go get a fish, because there's a fishing element. And, you're standing and there's a beach right in front of you. And so I went to that beach because I'm like, okay, yeah, I imagine this is where I get fish from. And I spent about 4 hours trying to catch the fish, and I never caught it because that was the wrong beach. The beach that was right in front of me is not the right beach. There was another one with easier fish to catch, like just a little bit like down, like kind of, down some like side path in the town. So after that, I had to take a 48-hour break because I was just too pissed. So that's the kind of stuff that, like, NieR still had that, like, it should have probably been playtested a little bit more. Probably should have, like, gone through some more eyes to give it, like, more polish. But it's a beautiful game. The writing is really well done. If you play through Automata, it's on par with that. The characters are interesting. This is a quote from him. He said, "Much of the game was inspired by the September 11th attacks and the War on Terror. Yoko took from it the idea of a terrible event where both sides believed they were doing the right thing and wanted to show the player multiple perspectives of the same events." So similar to Automata, in NieR, as you play through the game repeatedly, you start hearing the voices of the bosses. They're all terrified of you and wondering why you're trying to murder them.
You're saying if you play it again?
Yeah, so NieR, you have multiple endings, and each time you play through the game, you get more or different perspectives on the story. So the first time through, it's just you fighting these, like, machine-like entities. Then the second time through, you get to hear what they're thinking, and they're terrified of you.
So seeing like 9/11 from the idea that the terrorists were also doing
What they believe.
what they believe. Wow, that's not really a perspective here in the States that we.
No, this is definitely the perspective of someone who, like, is not
Outside.
not involved in this.
Right.
I'm not gonna like take a stand on where I'm at with this quote. It's just this is what he was thinking at the time.
Round B takes place in the second half of
Yeah, right.
the game. And then seeing D and then D goes to save file.
Yeah. So yeah, once in order to the end of the game, to save someone else,
You have to delete yourself.
you have to delete your entire save.
This is it. This is in NieR.
Yeah, NieR.
Because Automata has like
Yes.
spoiler, there's an element.
Yeah, so this is something that he's become known for now, is that if you really want to beat the game and get the full experience, you have to delete all your saves.
I'm kind of curious, like, so would the robots be Americans or I think maybe they would be Al Qaeda because they're a little unconventional.
I don't know. It's a good question. You should tweet at him. He has a Twitter. He'll probably give some, like, answer that doesn't really answer anything.
So the thought just struck me, like if Kojima did this, everyone would be like, oh man, genius, etc.
Yeah.
But it's not. And so now everyone's just like, that's so stupid.
I think it's just, I don't know, I would say, I don't think it's like a direct, like, supposed to be analog. I think it's just more about, you have these two sides that both think what they're doing is the correct thing, and so, where is the truth in that? Obviously, a terrorist attack is
Is
like,
that a movement of like in Japan culture? Is that a movement of like perspective, where they were like the people would look at September 11th as like these two very passionate groups fighting.
It's a good question. I don't know.
Was this like a very specific, unique perspective of this guy, or was it more like?
I couldn't really tell you what the perspective of the.
Because Kojima has a different take. I mean, he doesn't really engage in that, but
Yeah.
He's just
got his
interested in,
own-
like he's interested in asymmetrical warfare, right? Like he's obsessed with nukes. I think is
Yeah.
maybe fundamentally Japanese. And like I think NieR Automata shares a little bit of that. There's like a couple of side quests where it comes up, but
Yeah, I think for Taro, it's more about. I think he's more interested in human behavior than he is necessarily in like war as like a concept. Like Kojima's games are very interested in like what is warfare and like how is that part of life. Whereas I think Taro's stuff is more about analyzing why everything sucks.
War
Um,
never changes.
So
Love in Automata, you can buy the trophies.
what's that?
You can buy the achievements in Automata.
Oh, really?
Yeah, if you beat the game, you can buy them at the shop. The shop pointless they are.
Oh, that's really funny.
That's deep.
So yeah, so after I
One of
Yeah.
my friends was like, I can't believe that you buy the trophies means I'm worthless. I'm like,
You have to like beat the game first.
You beat the game, like the first playthrough, and then you can go back and buy all the trophies.
But then you hear the thoughts of the shopkeeper this time.
Yeah.
like loser.
well,
Thanks for your money.
depends on which shopkeeper. Now, yeah. So what it was known for, I mean, and Automata kind of does similar things. The game would like switch between. What initially made me think it was interesting is like there's lots of bullets on the screen. I was a big fan of like bullet hell shooters, like Cave, like Dodonpachi and stuff like that. So seeing an action game that had like bullet hell elements was like, oh, this is really interesting. I haven't seen that before.
Yeah, I thought that genre was dying, so it's like,
Right.
what's going on here?
So
It's back?
it would move between like that and an action RPG. It would change like camera views all the time. So sometimes it was 2D, sometimes it was 3D. Sometimes it would be a text adventure, kind of out of nowhere. And it would just go back through all of these. Just, sort of the quintessential postmodern take on like what is a video game. Just moving between these things. So some things work better than others. I kind of talked about that already. But mostly it was just that it was a really unique take on, what was basically at that point standard RPG action fare. It also turns out that the game is a sequel to Drakengard. So, again, having not played Drakengard, I can only relay what I've seen and what I've read. Yeah, well, so Drakengard has multiple endings, much like most of his games. One of them is supposed to be a joke ending, and that is the one that is connected to NieR. So the joke ending of Drakengard is, during the final battle, you and the final boss are warped into modern-day Tokyo, and then some jet fighters blow both of you up. NieR presumes that after that happened, the bodies of these foreign, entities then started spreading a massive disease, which is then what the main character's daughter has in the game.
Wow. You're all connected.
Yeah. So then for a while there was nothing, because after NieR came out, it didn't do well, because it just got very mixed reviews. I think a lot of reviewers didn't know what to do with it.
It's like a lot of backtracking and stuff, problems like that, right? Something.
There was definitely backtracking, and there was definitely, the graphics weren't like amazing. It was just kind of like the kind of thing where, if you're, what most game reviewers are going to do, they're going to look at like the core elements and be like, what do I rate this out of 5? And
it's like confusing. They got so many genres in there. Like if you said post-modern game, but it feels weird. It's like, what are you doing? Like, pick a genre. Why do you have to do everything?
We didn't have a vocabulary.
right, I just think it wasn't really understood, and it was at a time when I think especially people were like looking for particular kinds of games.
That was very that like Japan is dead.
Yeah.
It was like a PS2 game and PS3. The modern military shit.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I think it definitely was during the period of time where people were like, yeah, Japan isn't making anything good anymore, and like, it's going to die out soon. But to me, I was like, no, this game though. So he then moved on. Cavia closed because just, they never had like a hit, and you can't keep a studio open if you don't like make money. So he became an independent designer. And then 4 years later, so he worked on a bunch of mobile games, which is always like, I feel like a really, I don't know, I don't want to be offensive, but I feel like that's always kind of a sad existence for a lot of, well, to move from like making like games like that to then have to go into like the mobile world, I feel like it's like he was, he needed some money probably.
It was like falling from heaven.
Mobile games has a lot of money in it.
What's that?
Mobile games.
Yeah,
have
that's
a
what
lot
he's
of money.
saying.
That's
He
my
has
point.
quite a lot
Yeah.
of money.
Yeah. I'm saying like he probably needed, to have like take care of himself.
Working at like a really cool bank, and now you're working at an underground casino.
Well, hey, you're getting paid 5 times as much.
Let's make it multiple games.
And plus, underground casinos have a lot of money.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
you might go to jail.
I get,
Take it off and take it up
And,
into.
They're kind of like
sports
sort of
center.
Donald Trump
We're
and
done.
Taj Mahal casino.
I guess I feel like,
Donald Trump will be doing the mobile ads.
I don't know, it gives me a
Except
similar,
there's no Candy Crush, you just lose all your money.
it kind of, I don't know, for me it kind of gives me a similar feeling of like when you find out like, well this just happens to me because I have weird taste, but it's like, your favorite like Mega Drive game is now a hentai game, or like, or Valis, or like, like,
There are hentai games.
Yes.
that's a whole other
I
topic.
don't know if you're joking or you're just making a do.
No, I'm serious.
Oh.
Serious question.
Yeah, no, that's a whole other thing. Or like your favorite game series is now just pachinko.
Zero,
And that's it.
Okay.
Like Metal Gear.
Metal Gear or Castlevania, lots of Castlevania pachinko machines.
Zero, that's the first one that comes out of the game.
Yeah, they're not good. So for whatever reason, 4 years later, out of nowhere, he was like, "Yeah, we're making Dragon Guard 3," which was interesting. I didn't play it because I heard mixed things about the game.
That's the first line in the game. Zero, I have to pee.
Is that
Literally, the dragon says zero, I need to pee.
really? Yeah. So
That's in line.
It was pretty fucked up.
yeah, I heard it. I heard, from what I've read about the story and everything, it seems like there's a lot of like kind of dark shit in it, but it also seems like, from what I was told, like the writing was kind of more like juvenile. I don't know. I just wasn't in like a headspace at the time when it came out where I was like, "This is the thing I want to play." Maybe like now, I'll like pick it up and just mess around with it. Also, it's on the PS3, and like, by that time the PS4 was out, and I have this weird thing about switching consoles. So I can't really tell you much about it. But if you're interested, yeah, I mean, it's interesting to read about at least. But it's also one of those Muso style games again. But then finally, by some miracle, we were given NieR Automata. NieR Automata is really I was really surprised to hear that it was happening, and I was surprised that Platinum worked on it. I was surprised that Square Enix was putting money into it. I was surprised it was getting like anticipatory positive reviews. And then, playing it, I was just incredibly happy with what I saw, because to me, I was like, oh, finally, Yoko Taro has like some people working with him that can actually make his game good. And that's kind of what NieR Automata feels like to me. With this one, some people say that the ending is like more happy, and I mean, I don't know. That wasn't my takeaway from the game, but whereas the first one was kind of about like two sides thinking they're right, this one he was kind of thinking more about the idea of like children without parents was kind of the theme he was going for. And I think if you've played all the way through, that makes sense. So yeah, this is one of them. I don't know. I really loved this game, and it was probably one of the best things that I feel like I've played in years. But yeah, I don't know. I kind of just think it's interesting. I'm kind of curious. I'm interested to think about where he might go next and what he might do next after having finally a successful game. I'm kind of worried. Because if it just becomes like, like if you were ever a fan of Kojima pre Metal Gear Solid, like once Metal Gear Solid was a hit, that's all we ever got to get from him. And so I'm wondering if we're just going to have NieR sequels for the rest of eternity. Maybe that's not a bad thing.
Not as popular as Metal Gear.
Until we get near Pachinko, and then
Yeah, exactly.
But like, that theme of children without parents, and just kind of hearing like the backstory of kind of his career. I feel like, he probably has been nursing those kind of feelings after working after game after game after game of sort of, but not really. He put his heart and soul into those games, and now they're just like nobody likes. Well, people like them. It's a very niche amount of people who like them.
Yeah.
And it's
Like on the edge of being good.
yeah, it's so I always feel like there weren't enough people that loved it to ever survive and all that. So it kind of puts an interesting perspective on things. I might just be reading into this way too much.
It's possible. You reminded me, there's another story I remember reading from him from an interview, and maybe some of you have seen it. Huh? I did see the Kotaku interview, but this is...
Basically, please don't make any more games.
Oh, well, he said, what is one thing you would like to see other game developers do? And he said, I wish they would stop making other games so I don't have competition.
At least he's ours.
Yeah. But no, I was reminded of a story, and I feel like this also can inform your thoughts about why he writes the way he writes. He told a story about when he was a child. He and his friends were somewhere in Aichi where he grew up, and they were kind of running along rooftops, kids in cities do. And one of his friends fell in between buildings and fell to his death. And when they went down there, there was a crowd gathered, a crowd of adults and his friends, and the boy post-mortem began to have an erection, and the crowd started laughing. And so this is a memory that has stuck with him. And I think, knowing that, I feel like we can look at his games and we can look at the kinds of things he focuses on, the kinds of writing he does, and understand maybe a little bit more where he's coming from.
This kind of twisted story that's within this game, it's also kind of within this twisted life as well.
I think, well, you have a thought?
I guess I have a question I want to ask.
Yeah.
I bought this game and I played it for this event, and I played it for maybe an hour and a half. And there was nothing about what you were saying about this guy or the games he makes seemed to be reflected in that first hour and a half.
Sure.
So I played a little bit longer than you, 4 or 5 hours, and I definitely get it. So you probably just stop just either.
So it gets really strange.
Oh yeah. So the game doesn't even really, in my opinion, start until the third time you're playing through it. And so I'm not the kind of person, I hate it when people are like, you have to play this game. No, you can't stop at that time. You have to keep playing. No, to me, it's fuck it. It's your hobby. You stop playing a game when you feel like it. However, if you stopped after an hour, you definitely have no idea what the game is about. It starts out very sort of, I think, kind of generic anime sci-fi, they're running around killing robots kind of a thing.
It starts off as Bull House.
What?
The game starts off as Bull House.
It immediately starts off as kind of a shmup, and then it transforms into platinum-ish. But I just mean in terms of story and feel, there's nothing really there that I think would really make anything super super impactful unless you were really into the cinematography.
We played a lot of walking games.
Yeah.
The main gameplay is you gotta walk through the environment, and it feels like in this game the main environments or the main gameplay is killing and dodging.
So
it's a story.
What immediately struck me with the game is one, I think as soon as you get to the fortress that Yora is all part of, the whole tone and color palette and everything just immediately changes perspective. It's very kind of peaceful and sort of eerie and lonely, which I think is reflective of just kind of the whole experience of what the characters have. But then once you land on the Earth, what immediately, and did you get that far?
Yeah.
Okay,
So
yeah.
I'm like in the desert.
Oh, okay, you're in the desert. So I think what initially struck me as being interesting was not all the enemies want to attack you, which is not something that games like this usually do. It made me immediately start questioning, like, oh wait, maybe what I'm doing isn't a good thing. Maybe killing these robots, these machines, is like actually not good.
Kind of cute.
Yeah, they are kind of cute.
Look like the Android icon.
Yeah. But yeah, as you continue to play the game, yeah, it's not really until the end of the second playthrough that you really. So the one playthrough took me about, I think, like 27 hours. The next one took me about 12, and then after that it gets subsequently like shorter. So like in general, like you're talking like a total of like 50-ish hours to beat this. Yeah, what kind of happens is all the characters just really fucked up things start happening to all of them, and they start to lose their minds. You just kind of see them have, psychotic breaks as you're playing the game. And they're just like murdering each other, and it gets really vicious and dark and hopeless.
This idea of like replaying a game to understand it better, where does that come from? Because I'm used to that in like short stories, where short stories a lot of times are packed with all this information you can't process until you read it again.
Yeah.
And it's just you keep like that's not like unpacking, but where does that come from? Because I've actually never really heard of that.
I don't know. He says what he does is he writes backwards. He writes the ending first and then starts writing the story from there. So I think maybe that's part of it. But I think it's also, so the other thing about NieR Automata, at least, is...
It's supposed to be a Farmville game originally.
What's that?
It's supposed to be a Farmville game.
Yeah, it was supposed to be a Farmville game.
Originally, yes. Originally,
This game was supposed to be a
Farmville style game for mobile and Vita.
Farmville.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
Where you plant the thing and you come back 4 hours later and get
Yes,
the thing
like that.
and invest again.
Wait, what?
Yes. Platinum Games and him were supposed to make this a Farmville style game for mobile and Vita.
I
This was
didn't...
back in 2014.
We definitely lucked out.
It's like the only thing it isn't.
Yeah.
With all the stuff addressed.
So, yeah, so I think just like getting back to the like why multiple playthroughs thing. So the game, I feel like kind of lets you do what you want with it. So like in terms of, there's just tons of backstory. It kind of reminds me, have you ever played Marathon? Yeah. Okay. Like Marathon was a game where there's a lot of story and interesting stuff there, but you have to like read terminals, and that's like almost part of the fun if you're like into that, which I was. NieR Automata is kind of the same. There's like lots of detail, like tons and tons of detail about the whole world that you will just miss if you don't do the side quests. You don't have to do the side quests, but you can, and you can get like a much richer understanding, especially if you didn't play the original one and you don't know like what goes down in that one. But yeah, so the first time you play the game, you play as 2B. The second time you play through it, you play as 9S. The third time, you play as A2.
It's a completely different game then.
The first 2 times are very similar. The second time is, well, I don't know. I mean, should we talk spoilers?
Yes.
Yeah, all right. So, yeah, so at the end of the first round, like, 2B has to choke 9S to death. But then 9S managed to survive. He uploads his...
The characters. So you got the main character.
2B's the girl with the short hair. 9S is the boy.
Yeah. And this is what we're seeing.
And this is, we're seeing the end of Route A.
They're both partners in.
Yeah.
So
So,
on their mission.
yeah. What's that?
Is that an Evangelion reference?
Whoa.
I don't know.
It totally is.
It's definitely possible.
And the girl is supposed to be this super.
Oh yeah, that's right. Well, in this particular instance, it's because he's like being infected.
And then 9B is supposed to be the super kid that kills everything that's supposed to.
Well, so the idea is like 9S is like he's S stands for search or something. So he's supposed to like just like get data.
Data, but once you get into a certain state, he's supposed to be killed.
Okay, so the reveal that happens after after you play through it the second time, I think. No, I think it actually is after the third time. Is that 2B's mission is to kill 9S, and she's done this many times. They've known each other for a long time. 9S doesn't remember because they wipe his memory. But basically, because of his style of android, he figures out this big thing, which is that humans are not alive anymore. So the whole game, the impression you have is that there's a few humans left alive on the moon, and the Yora are these like super androids sent to Earth to get rid of the machines that were sent here by aliens. But the aliens are dead, and the humans are dead. So these machines and these androids are just fighting each other for no real reason. And the machines have started developing their own culture. They're basically just going through the past files of humanity and like, acting out Romeo and Juliet and doing all kinds of things, which you can watch. So you can watch their stage rendition.
Yeah.
It's definitely part of it, yeah. But
That makes so much sense.
I mean, it might be that like 2B is the type of pencil that artists use, and A2 is that paper, like an 8.5 by 11, and 9S is actually a Japanese style pen that you use.
certainly possible. But yeah, so the main thing is that the game is all about like revealing itself slowly over time. You have an idea of what it's about, but then you play through it again, and then you're like, oh, that wasn't the actual reality. And every time you play it, you're getting more and more and more.
Is there a question about like killing in this game? So it seems like some what I've played so far, like when they die, they like get uploaded to like original bodies.
So yeah.
So what are the stakes in the
Well, until the end of the second route, there are no stakes. It's like if they die, their data is like uploaded to the cloud or whatever, and they can get rebuilt. But the end of the second route ends with you destroying the fortress, because the fortress gets infected by the machines. They hack into it, and all the androids go haywire. So 2B and 9S escape, but 2B gets infected. So then A2 kills her. 9S doesn't quite. He sees her get killed, but doesn't really quite understand what's happening. So then he decides he's going to go try to kill A2. And it's just basically about, everybody just wants to kill each other. The androids, the machines rather, there's one peaceful village of machines, which if you played far enough, Pascal's village, they don't even end up escaping. He manages to take some of the children and machines with him, and when you're playing as A2, you bring them to a shelter, and then you and Pascal fight two robots who are named, what are they named? They're two like German philosophers, like Engels and Hegel, yeah. So you fight Engels and Hegel, but then once you're done, you go back into the room where the child machines are, and they've all killed themselves because they're machines. Pascal taught them fear, and they're logical, so their response to fear was to kill themselves. So then you're left with this choice where Pascal is completely distraught. He's the whole game been about like he wants peace, he wants to preach philosophy, he wants all the machines to stop fighting, and he's just like, can you just like wipe my memory or kill me, or you can just walk out on him and you don't have to do either. That's what I chose, which ended up being much more sad.
What happened? That didn't occur.
What's that?
What happened?
If you walk out on him, he's just like kind of like whimpers. He's like, "How can you leave me like this?" And then I felt like, "Fuck."
Apparently, if you wipe his memory clean, he just goes back to the village and sells you the body parts of his villagers.
Yeah.
That he has no memory of.
Right. He just finds these parts and he doesn't know what they are.
Wow, that's really cool. More fucked up than leaving him.
Yeah. So.
So I finished A, B, and C. How do I get to D?
Oh, okay. So, who did you play as with C? Oh, wait. Well, who did you end it with?
9S.
Okay, so end it with A2. And then once you've done... So the way the game works is Route C is the same for A2 and 9S. You alternate between the two of them and like each complete their thing. Then the game lets you select any part of that episode. So you can just warp right to the end because 9S and A2 fight each other, and that's the last like battle. And just depending on who you choose at the end determines like which ending you see. If you choose A2, you kill 9S, and then she like goes into her memory banks and like, because she fused with 2B. Sorry, I left that out. She took 2B's data and fused her mind with 2B. So she has like all of 2B's memory banks, and that's when you kind of learn about their whole history with 9S. kill A2 as 9S, it's really horrific. He kills A2, but then he like falls over onto her sword and is just screaming in pain and bleeding everywhere and then dies. It's pretty horrific. Don't play it when you're high like I did.
Would it be easier?
No.
Something is fucked up.
Yeah.
You just don't quite know.
Oh.
I can vouch for this not easier.
Yeah. So.
Or how about if you're drunk?
Let's do like a try for the first one.
Yeah, maybe just try it sober. But
If I can hold a 20-hour drunk, and I'm a lot stronger than I
yeah. So I think the game, definitely. I mean, I appreciate everybody giving it a spin for Game of the Month Club. I mean, I know it was more expensive and more of a time commitment probably than like the usual stuff. But yeah, it's definitely the kind of game that reveals itself slowly. But then once it starts, so in my description, I kind of compared it to like Lars von Trier or like, Gaspar Noé or something. It's like things are fine until they're not, and then they get worse and worse.
I actually didn't play the game, but even though I heard spoilers, I'm more motivated to play it now because of the depth that you're describing.
Yeah, it's very unique. There's not a lot of games that I find that do this kind of stuff, and to me, I think for me personally, the game resonated with me specifically because just of, I don't know, over the past year, a lot of things in the world have seemed kind of futile, not feudal, although maybe that too. But there's just a lot of pain and there's a lot of suffering and there's a lot of hurt and hate going around, and I feel like that probably was a direct influence in some ways on like the development of this game. Rob?
I was gonna say, I think the most interesting word you used is reveal, and I was thinking about like a lot of games that have a loop that you go through again and again. It's like a new game plus is always to, well, I missed stuff, or there are options I didn't try, or now I can go through an empowered feeling, and the guy's work, like in thinking about it, I'm really hard pressed to think of anything else where going through is specifically to reveal more. Like even even Chrono Trigger, which I was thinking of, it's like, well, you can play out other options, but you never gain more of a knowledge of what actually was happening.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Chrono Trigger. Yeah. Also, like a beautiful game, but it's like, you're going through to see like other possible endings, or like, but you're not getting like new perspectives, like like more.
Undertale.
Yeah,
Undertale.
Sure.
Almost a year ago, and that one.
Undertale. What's his face? The guy who made Undertale.
Toby Fox.
Yeah. He definitely played NieR. The original. Yeah, he definitely played. He was a fan of NieR.
Oh, so you think Undertale was actually directly?
Well, this is what I've heard through the grapevine.
Everyone played Undertale.
Yeah, but from a discussion I had the other night with somebody who like knows him, was saying like, he was a NieR fan. So I feel like that probably has something.
Because Undertale was all about you got to play it again and again. And, so if Toby Fox hadn't played this, Undertale would have been Undertale.
Yeah. Well, maybe not this, but like the one before it. He was one of he was one of the couple hundred people in this country who bought the game.
The other thing I was going to say is that
it's pretty cheap now.
What's also interesting is that, and that is when you talk about it being a filmic kind of context, or if you need to be in a novelistic context, the reveal that you are maybe doing the wrong thing in most other games is a End of Shadow of Colossus, what switch, gotcha, you were actually the bad guy the whole time, but to have it slowly, layer by layer, reveal itself that you are in the wrong. Again, I can't hard pressed to think of something that's analogous.
I just agree with you there about that. Yes. Although I kind of knew.
It was trick.
I felt like tonally the game totally leads towards
John.
So, so Bioshock has done pretty well. Just by saying.
What is Bioshock 2 well?
I know. I just want to mention this. Like, okay, who hasn't played Bioshock in this one?
Thank you.
Everyone dies.
It's predictable.
But like, so you're guided by this one guy named Atlas, and and you know, he tells you what to do. He tells you your mission, objectives, stuff like that. And he has this like weird vocal quirk that he just says, "Would you kindly?" for a number of things that you need to do. Halfway through the game, you complete kind of like all the mission stuff, but you realize that his vocal quirk is actually a trigger word because you're actually like, you know, basically an assassin that was raised by him, and then you realize Atlas is not him, and like, you know, you go through this game thinking, oh, I'm just accomplishing all these missions because he's telling me to, and then you realize, oh wait, he's telling me to because,
Yeah. Well, one thing I'm sorry. You should talk because I've talked.
I was going to say the repetition thing. Like, it leads into that same thing Bioshock's playing with. There's a game called the Stanley Parable.
Oh, I love the Stanley Parable.
Yeah, so like, for anybody else playing it, it's really good. You're playing. Your guy's awesome. But you're playing this. You're going through the story. You hear a narrator in your head. You get to this thing. And there's 2 doors, and you go, Stanley took the door on the left. And so like, what happens if the guy in the story doesn't take the door on the left? And so it's you doing these same like 5 little events over and over, and seeing how bad you can break the story.
That's interesting.
So that's definitely a game where you have to go through a bunch of times, and it does its best to account for every possible thing you could think to do to fuck with it.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think what is unique about NieR Automata is that, like, kind of what Robin was saying, like, or even with like Bioshock, like that's kind of a reveal near the end, and you kind of like you get as a player a sense of like, oh, that's fucked up, but NieR Automata is one of the few games where I've seen it take a toll on the characters. Like, 9S, the way he starts off in the game is kind of a very bubbly, naive, kind of boyish, you know, like curious individual. As fucked up things happen to him, you are playing as him and he has lost his mind. He's just killing things because he's had a break. And he's like lost, and he's just lost it. I think for me, you know, that kind of resonated just in a sense of like, you know, if you've ever been through some hard times and you know what that sensation of just being bombarded with negativity and stuff, and you human beings can't take it. And I think a lot of times in games, characters get a lot of reveals that would be kind of earth-shattering for somebody, but they just kind of soldier on and just do what they have to do. And it's like you as the player have this knowledge, but like the character seems to basically be the same. Whereas in this game, their mental health definitely deteriorates throughout the game, which to me was interesting. And that's part of what makes it sort of hard to play at times, because these characters who you've kind of grown to like, you're just watching them slowly lose their, you know, I don't want to use the word humanity because they're androids, but their humanity.
Like, you know, why make them androids? Like, what's the purpose of them not being human if he's like really trying to drive home that they're human? Like,
well, because I think a large part of the game is about like how do we define humanity and life, and you know, the androids have their idea of like what they are. The machines also think that what they're doing is being their own species. You know, and you'll read things where, you know, the machines, you'll read about patterns the machines did where they're like, they tried to have this kind of government and it failed and collapsed. But then they did it again. They're just like, why would they keep doing the same kind of government if it keeps failing every time? And as you're playing, you're just like, that sounds like something. You know? It's like, that sounds like something that people do. You know, and so I think there's a lot of...
It's like humanity's not necessarily defined by, like, we're just organic, like, beings, more like just things that happen.
The game kind of feels, there are these layers of like how not human can you look and act but still make the same mistakes as humans. Because there's the androids that you didn't know they were androids, you might think they were just humans. Then there's machines that are obviously little android logo robots, right? Then there's the pods, which are the little assistant things that hover over the android's shoulders and speak in a very like, you know, proposal, kill the thing trying to kill you or whatever. but they all end up having these existential crises, even as you get farther and farther from the characters that are human-like. So I think it's like to set up those layers.
Right, because I think it's mostly about just like I'll call on you in a second. Sorry. Okay, if you have a thought that you need right now, then say it. Yes.
Hold it in. I can hold it in if you want. Like, I'm sorry about.
No, I gave you the floor. Talk.
So I feel like I have a more like meta thought about that. That it's just easier to relate to characters that aren't like human. Because like as humans, we tend to try to like imprint our own like sort of like, oh, you know, I know this thing has like we see faces.
They're like, just like me, and they have the same imperfections.
Yeah, like if you look at another human, you don't quite remember it, but it's like, oh, they're an android. And like, oh, this android's feeling human things. I understand the human things, and I understand you're an android, and somehow it clicks better.
Well, like a fresher.
It's the same reason animals do human stuff in folktales, right? You get that one step removed. Where it's
Right.
like, David Sedaris says that thing about how, like, if I tell you a couple's having dinner, then you want to know what they look like, and whatever, but I say the squirrel and the fox are having dinner, then you have no questions. I can
Let's go on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, like, 2B and 9S are, like, literally built to do certain stuff. So that gives you, you know, everything you need to know what they're supposed to do, and then things can start getting weird.
Also, you can look at things through a fresher perspective.
Totally. One thing, and it's interesting too. This is not really related, but it's like when we talk about like they sort of get humanized through like not being human. You know, like it's really funny to see the fandom, the way there's a lot of like romantic drawings of 9S and 2B together, and it reminds me a lot of like when people do that stuff with like Evangelion. I'm just like, did you watch this? Like there was that didn't happen, you know. And like to me, you know, it's interesting that people want to see them have these kinds of roles, but it just like it doesn't ever happen. But I think that's a really good point. Like, why are they? I mean, for storyline purposes, there's a reason, but there's also probably like another reason. I think it's also just, my interpretation is that, if something is alive and has consciousness, regardless of like what it is, it's going to probably struggle with similar issues regardless. I think if you're just alive, you are probably at least at some point questioning just like, why am I doing this? And it's not an accident that so many of the characters have like the names of like famous German and French philosophers. Like that's just like very tongue in cheek and done purposefully, because that is the game is just about like questioning like what is the purpose of life and the futility of it. And I don't know, the ending kind of implicates that all the androids are going to survive. Like so at the end of the game, the positive takeaway is that once you've beaten A, B, C, and D, you see the final credits, and it turns into a shmup, like a little 2D shmup game, like when you're doing the hacking stuff in Route. So that's another thing too. When you're playing as 9S, you can hack into enemies, and it turns into a 2D shmup. During the credits, you are playing as a ship, and the credits are attacking you. So you need to destroy the creators of the game. And it ends with, it gets really hard, and you more than likely are going to die repeatedly. And you die about 10 times, but the game is just like, are you ready to give up? And you're just like, they're like, people are counting on you. You're just like, no, I'm going to keep doing this. And you keep going, and then finally what ends up happening is other players who have beaten the game start joining your ship and attacking the credits with you. And so at the end of the game, it gives you an option, and it says, if you're willing to delete all your save files, you will help somebody the way these other people helped you. So you're given a choice to sacrifice your stuff so that someone else can make it through the credits.
Wow.
And it's...
What does that mean? What does that mean when you do that? If you decide to
It's purely, I think, just kind of a moral choice. I think it's just kind of...
Is it Christianity? What is it? Like
Well,
what are you giving? You're giving up your progress. You're giving it to somebody you'll never meet.
Right, and because I think it's like, I think maybe it's supposed to... Well, I don't know the takeaway.
Maybe it's kind of like mothers giving birth to a child and they end up dying during childbirth.
Yeah. Oh
wow.
God.
Yeah,
I
I think that's
that,
cool.
like, I was just thinking if Undertale ended that way, that would have been so much. That would have been a pretty awesome way. to end.
I don't know your name, but you and then Rob.
My name is Adam.
Hi, Adam.
There's a really famous story that Sark tells in, I can't remember which book, about like, and it's kind of like this allegory or parable about like this guy who wants to like leave home and like join the resistance to like help save his country, liberate his country or whatever. But also his mother is dying of cancer, and so like, what is the right thing to do? Should he stay with his mother in her final days, or should he go and help save people? And the answer is that, well, it doesn't really. It's up to him. That's like sort of the whole point of like that's the point of being alive, is that like you get to choose like what you feel is right and do it. And
Yeah, but you're helping somebody else. You're helping
yeah.
somebody else.
So I think it's kind of the same sort of thing.
Yeah, but
Do you like sort of sacrifice this thing that you have worked for and spend all this time in to go help other people, which is like a nice thing to do, but it's also kind of fundamentally meaningless because whatever, it's just eating the credits in a stupid
yeah,
game.
it's also like throwing like the flame of humanity or something. It's like, oh, we're gonna die. Okay, let's at least like go all out and try. Let's like throw it out there. Like let's send a spaceship out to like some distant star just to try to like preserve humanity or something. Maybe that's the choice. Like, do you like?
Yeah.
You're just like, fuck. Let's go.
I mean,
Like,
it would probably be Scott and say
what?
I mean, a lot of people, yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah. But
But that's the question. At that point, you've done everything.
Well,
not necessarily.
Yeah.
what's that?
That's the thing. It's asking you if you've done as much as you're going to do. So you could go back to more side quests, get weapons,
Yeah,
whatever.
it does ask you about 3 times in a row. They're like, "Are you really sure? Because you're going to lose everything if you do this."
But it's like, so there are like 21 like non-canonical endings. As
Right.
well.
So yes.
Where so like I think that's helpful interpretively. So like the
So
first
the-
one I got, somebody gave me a fish and I ate
Yep.
it and I died.
Yeah.
And because androids can't eat fish.
Yeah.
It's a- this is the most
Salmon
fish thing.
specifically.
Yeah, I think it was a macro. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Not whatever. But so like most of the whatever you didn't get to the endings, are you just walking away at some point? There's
Right.
a big fight and you don't go to it, or you eat the fish, or whatever. So I think like with that ending, it's like okay, you've done the 3 playthroughs, you've done the extra ending, you've done as much as you're reasonably going to do. Are you ready? What more do you want from this game? Like I think you're right that's what it's asking, right?
Yeah, like, are you done? Like,
Yeah.
if you're done with the game, what does your save file matter anymore at this point? Like, if you're finished.
Right. And what's funny is most people I know did not sacrifice their save files. I
it's a
did.
meaningless thing. Like, can you give this up? Like,
Yeah. Well, to me, I was just kind of like, realistic. I was like, well, I have done everything I want to do on this particular playthrough. So, yeah, I'll give up my save file because it's like a cute gesture. And
great value. Like,
yeah, I'm like, I'll sacrifice my save so someone else can help beat the credits and like whatever,
And when one of the helper ships gets shot down, it says whoever's data has been destroyed.
Yeah.
oh my god.
Yeah. So I think it has a lot to do also with the whole game is kind of, I think, there's a lot of takeaways, but one that did kind of stick with me is the futility and the persistence of existence. It's this idea that we do things in spite of logic. We do things in spite of experience. We keep on going because there's an instinct for us to do that. And we make choices based on what we think are the right things to do. And I think most of the characters in this game also go through those kinds of situations. And a lot of those situations end up being really like fucked up and mean of the creator to put them in. But, I read an interview with him a few months ago where, the whole idea is like, it's 10,000 years in the future from now and humans don't exist anymore. And someone asked him in the interview, do you think human beings will have a happy ending? And he was like, honestly, I don't see how we could. And he's like, we've never stopped, fighting each other. We've never stopped killing each other in our entire history. I don't see how it's possible that we're going to survive. And that's kind of a view that I personally am like, yeah, that makes sense. I feel that. But I think it's, it's open to debate. But I think that is kind of the perspective he's coming from, is that you can have meaningful and beautiful experiences in spite of the fact that ultimately you can kind of just throw your save away.
Okay. So it's like, it's still beautiful, it's still a flower, even though it doesn't matter.
I mean, this reality, I would delete it.
Yeah, I know, saves aren't really that important, but I was going to add on to the fact that, we're like still fighting each other technically, but, if you look at today, we are living in one of the most safest periods of time in human history. Like, we have had by far the least amount of wars, who are the least likely to die in war. And yeah, of course, you see all that news and all those terrorist attacks and crap.
So we kill ourselves by warming up our atmosphere
Okay, except
there's not enough wood to knock on in this room.
That cabinet's pretty woody.
There's that saying where you're always like stuff. Like people always say, only two things that have always happened in history is things get better and people think things are getting worse. Right? Everything else, you never know. Right?
Yeah.
So there's truth to that, but it's also it's a miracle we haven't wiped ourselves out at any number of previous points in history. So,
Right. Realistically, and look, I don't want to say that you're wrong, because I don't fucking know. I'm going to die in another 50, 60 years. But it's if I don't get hit by a car when I leave here. But the point is we've only existed for about 100 years where we had the capability to wipe out the world. Previously, it was kind of you had to go and stab people a bunch to get them to die. Now we have these things that you just drop and goodbye entire city. And we've only really had to deal with that for 100 years. And out of the entire existence of humanity, that's a very minuscule amount of time. So it's true that you and I and all of us in this room are probably safer than we ever were. It's not 19th century London.
We have a new existential crisis. We're all living in a simulation. So what's the point of anything? If I'm just an android or a simulation, what's the point? So I guess the point is in acting out or something. Or
what if you're a nihilist and you don't believe in anything?
You're probably wrong.
Well, I'm a nihilist, baby.
Well, this guy's not a nihilist. The Craig's not. He thinks
I don't know. I don't know if he entirely is. I mean, I think that there's probably elements of a kind of nihilism.
The game's all about beauty.
Well, certainly. I think that there's beauty in it. I don't know. I think it's complicated. I think he tried to make something that's reflective of what the experience of being alive is, because it's the same thing with the machines and the androids. It's you sympathize with them, you kind of hate them. They do things that don't make sense. They do things that you understand. But
except they don't lie.
Yeah.
Hey. I have two questions/points. So we definitely talked a lot about the androids, but I'm kind of curious what everyone thought about the machines. Specifically, a couple points, the rapid evolution when you kind of catch them all, having sex, pretending to have a baby, that kind of thing. Those were really intense moments. And also, what do people really think about the difference between a machine and an android is?
That's really interesting. So I'll just say what I think first. So I think if you're in the desert scene, maybe you didn't get to it yet, but there's a scene where you come upon all these androids and they're all having sex, sort of, simulating it in a way. I think to a degree, there's a part of it where it's this idea of I don't know. This is just my interpretation. If you've ever done something ritually, there's a part of it where it's does it matter if it's real or not? The ritual, it's the repetition and the doing of it is the part that matters. So there's a part of me that's well, these machines, they're just simulating what human beings do, because that's what they think human beings did. But is it not real for them? Because they think it's real and they're doing it. So it's that's their real experience. And yeah, I mean, I don't really think that there is that big of a divide between the machines and the androids. I think the machines just have their way of doing it, and the androids kind of have like a way that's a little more familiar.
I get more of a human feel from the machines than I do from the androids. But one thing that regarding like whether what they're doing is real or not is I found that like okay, yeah, you're simulating sex, and that's relatively primitive. But that rapid evolution when they're all screaming like this cannot continue was so amazing. Just like that's real. I feel like that's like you can't get more human than to evolve, or more lifelike than to evolve. So that was my take on it.
That seemed good.
Yeah. If you haven't, that's the scene where it's to me, like if you can get that far and you get to that scene and you're not like kind of sold on what's happening, then like it's probably not for you. But yeah, like it's like that's kind of the defining moment where you're like, oh yeah, this is weird.
That is going on, yeah. We also like if when a game maker wants to screw with your saves, I think that says something about them. They don't just want to make entertaining. They want you to like question things, and they want to affect you. You know, they want to like affect people.
Right.
You know,
Well,
that's kind of interesting.
yeah. Well, a lot of people are very precious about their like save files and very precious about like like I teach high school during the day. That's what I do, and a lot of my kids are like, oh, how many platinums you got? I'm just like, I don't know. I don't care. Like it's just done. It's not like I don't play games to like earn trophies, but to like teenage boys, like that's something that like they're very focused and fixated on, and like I get it. But to me, like that's completely irrelevant. And to me, like like giving up a save file, I'm just like, well, I'll just beat the game again. Like I'll do it again if I feel like it. But I do think that that's, I don't know if that's like the opinion of most gamers. I feel like a lot of gamers are very like, have kind of a sense of ownership over their saves and like what they've put into the game because they have that whole experience associated with it.
Sure, I mean, haven't you
Maybe, I don't know.
I think it depends on how the game treats saves. Like, say, Alien Isolation, how they treated saves is like each save is actually like precious. Like you get there, you hold the thing into the thing, you're waiting, you're making sure you're not getting attacked by an alien, you pull it out, it's like, earned that one. Skyrim, oh, I'm just gonna massacre a whole village. Save, massacre, load, nothing ever happened. And it's just like, I can throw away a Skyrim save, I can't throw away an Alien Isolation save.
Just get to that 5 key.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, quick saving certainly, Rob.
Yeah, I think that goes back to your point about how the characters go through things and are affected, where in other versions of the medium, the character is just a cipher for you, right? And so it seems like in a lot of ways, this is a game that is trying to pull away interactivity from you, or like that ownership is I think the word you use, right? Like then you have ownership of your save, you have ownership of the character, right? But then to have the characters have psychological reactions to the actions instead of just being blank slates is, that's what happens in a movie, that's what happens in a novel.
Right.
Right. And that's taking that away from you, the player, like, and what your role in the story.
Right. Even something like Metal Gear Solid 2, after the big reveal as you're playing as Raiden, like Raiden doesn't really, like you playing as Raiden doesn't really. I mean, you get swords, but like nothing really, and you lose your clothing, but like nothing like super dramatic changes with the feel of that game.
Right.
In my mind, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying that like you continue to be that character because that game was about that.
We're talking about the save a lot, I noticed, but like you brought up like what are you really giving up if you give up your save? You're giving up the ability to start playing a game like Skyrim at that moment, because that's when the time you're making that choice is around the time you got chapter select, which lets you load into any part of the story, massacre a whole village, see one of the weird non-canonical endings, and then reload like nothing happened. So it's like it really is asking to think like what do you want out of me?
Right.
It doesn't. Sorry.
Is there anything after the choice of like giving up your
save.
Yeah, they give you a cutscene that so the pods that have been following you, apparently I think have some backups of the characters'
They
memories.
collect your body parts from the bunch of times you died.
Yeah.
And
So
sorry.
no.
I was going to say that they rebuild the 3 main androids, and they have this conversation about, like, if we're rebuilding them exactly the same, won't the same stuff just happen again? And one of them says that's possible, but again, maybe not. You have to choose your own future, and that's how it is.
yeah, it's kind of very. If you've seen like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, it's kind of just like, yeah, they're probably gonna end up killing each other again, but like maybe they won't. So people were like, oh, why did you give this one a happy ending? And I was just like, is it a happy ending? I'm like, I feel like it's kind of just a neutral sort of like, okay, they're gonna come back. I don't know if that's like for the best.
I think it'd be interesting to play a game where you can, you do that thing where you like do something crazy like wipe out a village and then load back, but maybe like they remember.
That's Undertale, right?
Yeah, that's
Undertale.
You know what else did that? Link's Awakening. If you stole from the item shop, which you could do, if you re-enter the item shop after you've stolen, the item shop keeper kills you, and then when you reload your save file for the rest of the game, your name has been changed to Thief. So like real repercussions for like
Cannot get away from your actions.
Yeah.
I feel like that's like.
Oh, yeah, I remember doing that as a kid and being traumatized. I was like, I can't rename. I have to start over. I'm a thief forever.
Yeah, you're forever
It's all
thief.
capitals, right? So
It's just thief.
It upset me more because it was like against the naming conventions.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
You're a thief for life.
I remember reading years and years ago, and I think it was right around the time Metal Gear Solid 2 was coming out, where Kojima did talk about this idea where he said he always wanted to make a game where you could only play it once. Like, you play the game, and if you die, you just got to get a new one. Obviously, there's, like, financial reasons why that doesn't work, and, like, why that would be a horrible idea. But it's really interesting, and I like games that play around with it. Like, what's the mech shooter on the Xbox with the huge controller?
Steel Battalion.
All right, so in Steel Battalion, if you haven't played Steel Battalion, it's kind of like a mech warrior kind of game, but you have this huge console with like foot pedals and like all these buttons, and you got to know what they all do. When you die in the game, when your mech gets blown up, you have to flip open a clear plastic thing and then hit the eject button. If you don't, it deletes your save file.
I love it all.
Yeah. So, and it was, for whatever reason, unfortunately, it was released here, right? Yeah, they did. Very limited, I think. But
that thing.
Surprisingly, not a huge hit.
I mean, it also cost like $300 because you had to use a giant real mech console to control it.
I saw it at like a yard sale one time.
Oh yeah.
Really close. And I'm like, I don't need a giant.
I mean, do you though?
Well, to be fair, it's like replay value just off the charts.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I got to play it a couple times. My friend Dave has it. And it's nice to have. But yeah, like I do like games that sort of play around with this idea of like what is the investment of a player and like what does it mean to be playing a game and yeah, like what is it, what is your data worth? I remember when I was a child and I was like 7 or 8 and I was playing The Legend of Zelda, the first one, and I think like I inserted the cartridge wrong or I fucked it up and somehow the power went out and it deleted all my saves. And I remember going downstairs and just crying to my mom, but she couldn't do anything. And I was like, she's like, well, what can you do? I was like, nothing. I'm like, it's just gone. And just having to deal with that moment of just like knowing all the time that I've put into this is just over with.
Yeah, it's a friend of mine, Joel, does a level design for us, but he said his first experience with death was his save file being deleted. And, like, you could never get it back.
Yeah. And so, I think that... Oh, sorry.
If you definitely play games better, you get, like, traumatized with the constant saving. Like, I lost, like, 100 hours in, like, the original Baldur's Gate. I remember there was, like, actually, like, I played a lot of, like, the old Sierra Adventure games. There was just a moment in my life where I tried to save my game. I realized how stupid that was. I tried to save my game, my life. I visualized
That's like when you write something down,
Yeah.
and you reach for Control Z or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, well... Yeah, games
So
don't
what if
really.
I die? Then when I go into this room.
Gotta save.
Most games I think like don't really push our comfort zones because I mean they're supposed to be.
It's a financial
Well, it's supposed to be.
problem there.
I mean, there's definitely been a trend, like in the theory of game, like the proper theory of game design, like progression,
Yeah.
ramps, and all the way from the 90s to the 2000s.
Sure.
Like the player always should be having fun, and everything's to make the experience for the player. So you get like these roller coaster games that are like blast to play, and most people like them. But once you've played enough of those, they all feel the same. It's like you're really seeing with NieR and games like this resurgence of like, no, you don't just want to do that all the time. You want to do something different. Like, I don't know if you always want to like have your games and your saves, but
Right.
There's a reward.
Yeah, but it's really interesting to me because during undergrad, I got into roguelikes for the first time. Like, I didn't grow up with them because I just wasn't that cool. But like, and I mean that. I'm not being a jerk. I really wish I knew about roguelikes as a kid. But like
real roguelikes,
like real like Rogue. But like, yeah. But in college, I kind of got into there was this one just called like Crawl or whatever. Like not the new one, but it was just called Crawl. It was just some Windows program and. The whole concept, I was like, oh, this is like an RPG, but it's like an arcade. It's like, like you die very easily, and like once you're done, it's done. And what's really interesting to me is, I remember when Demon's Souls was coming out. It wasn't out here yet. I used to post on a forum a lot that was called Select Button, and it doesn't matter if you're familiar with it or not, but it was just a bunch of like, I don't know, like pretentious people talking about video games. So.
Like this?
Yeah, kind of, yeah. And a lot of people imported Demon's Souls because they got the Asia version because it was in full English and there was still no word that it was going to come out in the US. And everybody on this forum was talking about it. It's like, this game is so good. Like, it's great. You have to get it and blah, blah, blah. So I then heard, it's coming out in America. So I got it. And what really shocked me was that it did well. And now, like, Dark Souls, like Bloodborne, all that stuff is, like, huge. All of my students, all of my 14 to 17-year-old boys have played the Dark Souls series, which to me is like, I really still don't quite get it. Because to me, like, those are not, like, fun games. Those are very punishing games where, like, if you've had the experience of losing souls or, blood or whatever, you know that frustration. I'm just like, why would they be into this? But, like, that's, like, almost, like, gives me hope. I'm just like, cool, like, maybe like people do like interesting games. It's just they don't get enough exposure to it.
Maybe we seek that relationship, like the pain of it, because the Nintendo games were quite painful when you save or get lost. I mean, now then they kind of like melt or kind of reduce the pain of the save file to where it was non-existent, and now that pain's coming back into.
It's not just pain though. It's like I don't know what it is. It's like it's feeling the system push back against you or something. Because like there's that conventional wisdom in game design that like you need to super tutorialize except for little kids. But every little kid I know plays Minecraft, which has no tutorial. It kind of has a tutorial now, but it's like the least tutorialized. It's
gambling. It's like you watch. I don't really like sports, but you watch a sports game. Sports game's pretty interesting. You're betting $1,000 on it. It's a little more. You might be paying a little more attention.
The risk reward thing.
So if I know I'm going to lose all this stuff, like it's terrifying. You feel a lot. It feels like for real.
Sure. Well, I think, and most of us seem to be like within a 10-year age range, so we probably have similar growing up playing games experiences. But like, I think what most of us would like about retro games is that experience of like you had like 5 continues to beat the game and so many lives, and if you didn't do it, you had to start from the beginning. And I think part of like what was entertaining about that is that like it made you good at the game, and if you didn't get good at it, you didn't beat it, where you got a game genie. And I think that is like an experience that a lot of modern games don't really embrace quite as much. And some people probably feel like it's kind of dated, the whole idea of lives or a score and stuff like that, like outside of arcades, like these days, like do you need those things? But there's a part of me that's like, no, that shit is fun. Like you do need it in some games. Like it doesn't have to be all of them, but I do think like, you should have some risk.
Yeah, because when we played the demo for NieR, when we first got it, you were like, no, you have to play it on like the near impossible level to really understand why this is good.
Yeah, so I didn't play through NieR on hard when I played through it officially because it's just way too much. But yeah, like the different difficulty levels of NieR Automata dramatically change the way you play that game.
That feels like a problem with the genre, like because difficulty, it's like story and kind of having you slave towards these realizations. But it's difficult. I mean, we're all not the same. Some people are better than others at the game. Like
Sure.
It's like, I mean, you have a game like Uncharted where it's just a story. You play it, you get everything out of it. And this is really, like it's completely different. Like storytelling, like it's optional. Like how you go as far as you want.
Yeah.
It's really different.
Yeah, and there's stuff that you might just not pick up on if, like for example, in the base camp in NieR Automata, eventually there appears these two red-headed androids. And if you haven't played the original, you wouldn't recognize them. But if you do play the game and you do some side quests, you learn who they are. And they were the original. They are like, what's the word for androids? I don't know. They're like the same. No, they're like the same model as the last bosses of the original NieR. They're the ones. Their model is the one that wiped out humanity. So as you play through the game and you do a side story, like a side quest for them, it then goes to this like kind of text adventure thing where there's like really sad music playing and it kind of goes through their lives a little bit. And apparently ever since then they kept making this model of android, but they programmed into them a feeling of guilt, so that as soon as they're alive, they just immediately feel a kind of guiltiness that they don't quite understand because they wiped out humanity. And everywhere they go, they're ostracized. Like other android camps, like will beat the shit out of them and like kick them out because they know like that those are the ones that did it. And it's really fucked up.
Who's programming the androids? Is it humans or is it other androids?
The other androids programmed to do that. Yeah.
That's really fucked.
You know, and it's the kind of thing where, again, it's like, yeah, I mean, human beings, we kind of do that. You know, we do that to each other. I mean, we have caste systems. We have all these things where we're like, you are just by virtue of you being born, you are this, and this is how you are. And, you know, when we see it disconnected like androids, you're like, oh, that's fucked up. But it's just like, no, that's like happening right now to somebody.
To the thing about like relating to the machines, I think that was part, I totally related to them on a different level as well. I think part of it is that the androids have super prescribed roles from that to just them being different models and have different purposes. Whereas the machines, you see them like self-determining and coming up with a system of government and like picking their genders. And I think some of them choosing to identify as children. And, like, it's really, really weird to like see them identify. Yeah, exactly. So they're just children forever.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a the fourth kind of like region you get to is like the Forest Kingdom, and it's this group of machines that decided they would try out like the feudal system of government, and they have a king, and I forget. Yeah, the original king dies, and then they replace it with a baby. And then they're waiting for the baby to grow up, but it doesn't because it's a machine. So when you arrive to it, and it's really weird. When you first get to there, you show up in the courtyard, and there's the baby just in like a crib, rocking back and forth, and A2 comes and like stabs it.
This is some serious Lewis Carroll shit.
So
some of it feels like Voltaire too. Like the baby king is very like Candide, and then not that long after that, there's like a cult.
Oh yeah,
they're all gonna die so they can become gods. Yeah, which is not really that different from just a belief in heaven when you stop and think about it. But okay, whatever. But like it's all these like absurdist repeating loops of misunderstood human society.
Right, yeah. I forgot. Yeah, the machines that form a suicide cult. I forgot about that. That's like totally like.
Suicide cult. They're all like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, you have no idea.
Yes, yeah. Some of the machines are like really terrified. They're in the corner, like cowering. You go talk to them. You're like, I'm so scared. Please don't let me die, God. Like, you know, it's like really just like, holy shit. Like, what is this? Like,
but it's okay. They're all machines as well.
Yeah, and you're just kind of like, this is I felt bad for them. You know, it's like I'm like these poor machines. But like, you know, you're there as 2B and you're just like killing other machines. Like that's the thing about it is like you empathize with the machines, but you still have to kill them. You know, so it's like
fun.
Yeah, it is, because the system is like the fighting system's good because it's platinum and they know how to make fighting games.
You can't not have fun.
Right.
Also, it's not Undertale. I mean, come on.
Yeah. But no, yeah. The other thing too, yeah, the 26 different endings because it goes from A to Z.
Jeez.
Most of them are pretty quick. Like
Two lines of text, right?
Yeah, it's like you're like an android is like, I want to see what happens if you eat mackerel, and then you eat it and you die. Or like there's a moment in the game where 9S is captured by the machines, and after you beat the boss, you have to walk up to 9S to free him. But if you just leave the room, that's an ending. So it's yeah, like to me, I even though it's not like they're not like fully fleshed out endings, to me I'm just like, oh, it's neat that they thought of that. It's neat that they decided like, what would happen if I just decided to not do the thing?
It seriously reminded me a lot of the Stanley Parable because it's just like making room for you to goof off and not participate in the story, and it has an answer for you. Just like if this happened, then the machines wiped out every android on Earth, and if this happened, then actually 2B became a fisherman and he's totally happy. Like
yeah, I think. The reason I wanted to talk about this game is because, this is not typically the kind of stuff we see in, mainstream releases. This is usually the kind of stuff that we see, indie developers do. And I guess what really was, again, really surprising and interesting to me was that the game seems to have done well. People other than me seem to like it. And that's, there's always some part of me that's always really kind of floored by that, because I feel like I have questionable tastes at times. So when I see other people resonating with something like this, I'm just like, cool, maybe there is some kind of hope for...
People really struggling with the game because it's very polished.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe your experience is different, but I would say any Japanese, classic style Japanese games.
Sure, yeah.
This feels like the best one of those since Final Fantasy 3 for me.
Yeah, I would.
It's like the moment to moment. Feels like going to towns, talking to NPCs. Reminds me a lot of that kind of classic style. That I played Japanese games like Dark Souls, but they're not in that style. So Undertale might be the closest thing.
Yeah, it's definitely a very Japanese game. There's no getting around that, and it's definitely very kind of classic in that sense. But yeah, I kind of felt similar. I was like, this is a better game than most of the stuff I've played in this kind of genre for a while. And I kind of weirdly feel like this past year or so has been kind of full of that, games that have sort of surprised me. It's not perfect by any means. What?
That Darkest Dungeon kind of had dealt with Sandy. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Everything this year sucks.
Video games.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. 2016 was a great year.
Yeah.
2017, great year. Just everything else. Yeah.
So is this the, are we looking at the peak, or are we have farther to go?
I don't know yet, but really, it's really, there was a period of a couple years where I really was not playing a lot of stuff outside of what we do here, and a couple things here and there, like a fighting game or something like that. But in the past, half a year to a year, I've played a lot of stuff where I'm like, this, I really like this, and maybe this will make you judge me, but even the new Final Fantasy game is there's a lot about it that's just not good, but it's definitely the most fun I have with a Final Fantasy since 7.
Alright, okay.
In my opinion, I'm sorry.
I agree.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, all right, yeah. Because I know other people like 10, and I just don't understand that. But
That sounds great.
yeah, it's the most fun I have with 1 since 7. Persona 5, I really dug, and that game, just playing it took me 110 hours. Not even trying, and I haven't put that much time into a game in one playthrough ever. Just to get through it. I've usually it's we all I think have games that you beat it and then you kind of spend time with it. Persona 5 just to beat it takes over 100 hours. And the fact that I did that, I was just like, why did I? I'm I guess I must have really liked this. I have no idea. I'm wondering if we're starting to see maybe kind of a resurgence of what people think of as the Japanese scene happening again. Maybe because I feel the thing that was always missing throughout the years where people were it's dead was there wasn't enough experimentation happening.
Now I feel like maybe we've hit a point where like, the resources and the engines are cheap enough at a point where they feel like they can start messing around more. Whereas in the past it was just like this game costs $60 million. We have to do the safest thing possible. I don't know. I mean, I hope it continues. I hope we continue seeing more stuff from that because, like, again, I personally I like playing all kinds of games, but for me, my roots are less like PC and more like NES Master System. That's what I grew up with, and that's like what I will always kind of be nostalgic for. So to me, I would love to see more of it, but I'm a cynic. So I'm just like, well, let me just appreciate these games, and we'll see what happens. Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to get my hopes up.
Well, how was it selling?
I knew the numbers.
Well, they shipped 1.5 million.
Oh, yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah.
It was a lot.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah,
I tweeted about it. About like how.
Yes. Yeah, he did. Yeah, he's been. I think he's probably more surprised than anybody.
Just to be a little cynical though, I feel
Sure.
like it's partly because platinum, partly because like attractive character design.
Oh yeah.
There was a lot of fan art of SQP. Just
That's almost like I think it's smart because like he's using all those devices to sort of get people in, and then if they stick around, maybe they'll get a little more out of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably the intention. I think the idea is like, okay, let's make the main character like a pretty woman, and like people will probably pick this up, like especially like anime fans and stuff. But yeah, I think it is the kind of thing that if they get invested in it, then they'll probably cry.
Yeah, even the game, like just having like hack and slash, like bullet hell, like that's a hook also.
Yeah.
And yet, like this is the biggest hit Platinum's had in a minute as well. I mean, they've been struggling a little bit.
Oh, sorry.
No, I'm sorry.
No.
I was just gonna say all of those. I hate it. I hate hack and slash. I hate bullet time. I hate just anime and games. Why am I gonna buy this? And then the moment that I felt for me when my money was worth it was actually the roller coaster scene.
Yeah.
That's when I was like, okay, I'll see this. Yeah. I don't know. It has something for everybody. Right?
Also, I remember, like, this is as we went to like discuss the beginning. This is like not his first game. This isn't even the first NieR game.
Yeah.
It's like it actually follows the pattern if you look at like From Software. Like Demon's Souls was certainly not their first game. They've been making games for a long time before that, but that was kind of the breakout hit. And like really took Dark Souls to like really catapults that to the kind of becoming like a serialized franchise they worked on for the past 5 years. So.
Yeah, because technically like the King's Quest series was kind of like pre-Dark Souls or whatever. Kingsfield, not King's Quest. Sorry, Kingsfield, yes.
I die a lot in King's Quest.
Yeah.
I didn't know what the King's Quest was.
Yeah.
King's Quest was the series.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good point. It's not Yoko Taro's first rodeo, but I think it is kind of just like there's like it's if you've ever like with anything, any artist, when you hear about them is like when they probably got good. For Yoko Taro, you ever like there's a band and you go buy their album and it's like, oh yeah, this is so great, and then you're like, they had like 5 others before this, like
You're already good. You should know about it.
Yeah, and you listen to it and you're like, oh, I hear like what they were doing, and I can see how it wasn't as polished. And I kind of feel that way with Yoko Taro, and like the whole point of going through Kavia's history and like his is because it's like this stuff has always been there, but I just think it was never executed properly. I think that any of Kavia's games, had they had the same team as NieR Automata, probably would have turned out like really excellently. So all we can do now is just go play them and like think about that.
Also, I think it's something to be said for like there's these giant sort of artists or game designers that we hold them in this critical eye like, oh, they've done this before, but like in reality, every project, every painting, every photograph, every game is new. Like you have new challenges that you have to face, and in a way you're new, so it's like it's almost unfair because like maybe you did this 14 other times, but this time it's different again, so can you find a solution?
Yeah, one thing that I did see, and I made that comment about how when he worked at Kavia he was always yelling at people. He said that during the production of Automata, he didn't yell once because the Platinum people were really good. He was just like, he just would go to his office and he wouldn't have to yell at people. And I feel like, I feel like you feel that. I feel like you can see that there's a cohesiveness in the game. It's still not perfect, by any means. It's not the prettiest game. Like, I mean, it can be. At times, it's prettier than most games. But, it's like the graphics aren't, like, the best.
But it's internally consistent.
Exactly.
And that's attractive.
It's such a hybrid of too many things. I don't think you can ever reach, at least from a gameplay perspective, like perfection.
Sure.
It's like, I mean, I guess I'm more for like a first-person shooter where it's just like a very simple mechanic. Like this is like so many things.
I kind of appreciate a game that can like be flexible and first it's like it starts out like spaceships, right? It's like totally different. But I like that because the whole game's about perspectives, different perspectives. And I think
it builds on the craziness in smart ways. So like in Route C, you're going back and forth between A2 and 9S. Kind of at will, you're picking whose story to follow at a given time, and then the stories come together, and then the last level you're switching back between them like fluidly. Like you're in a ship and a cloud goes by, and now you're fighting on the ground. And now a cloud goes by. And
all right, yeah.
It's a final boss, and actually, like I didn't even notice it switching between them sometimes.
I wonder.
Wow.
There's like a gaming literacy. Like we're all like much more gaming literate. In the past 20 years, like most people can play games. Like maybe the idea that we can switch between genres is something that game designers can take for granted now.
Yeah, that's certainly a possibility. Like, one thing I did worry about with, like, some people I recommended this game to is, like, I knew that they're not, like, good at games, so I was kind of worried. I'm like, are they going to be able to, like, play through this? Because, like, it's, like, kind of hard sometimes. It's not, like, it's not an easy game.
But the ADD kid in me loves the fact that you can, like, switch it totally different. Like, yes, different!
Yeah, no, sometimes it feels like you're playing Contra, where you have this, like the roller coaster thing, for example. It's like, it's this side-scrolling moment, and you have your pod, you're shooting at stuff coming from all angles, and it's like, you're like, oh, this is a new game.
Yeah.
You play with a Steam controller? It's very difficult. You should play with the Oculus Rift.
See, I wouldn't mind playing like ADD kid in me is like, I could probably play this in an Oculus. Always should have.
It'll give you a seizure.
Cool, Joe. Thanks for
Thank you guys for being here. Thanks for coming. Thanks for talking.
So we got